Your feet or shoes should be waterproof. I hope at least that part of your shoe is. Feel free to stomp out a little area that you can stand in so that you don't get wet. We started here with Lila and Danielle, who said that one said that Treblinka is an extermination camp and the other said it's a labor and extermination camp, and I said both answers are correct answers. Treblinka had two stages, or rather two camps. Okay? The first camp wasn't this whole final solution thing so much. It was 20,000 people here in a Konzentrationslager, a concentration camp, forced labor, resettlement in the east. Do all these things sound, are all these terms and concepts that ring with everyone?
Yeah.
Even the people who are looking down and not nodding their heads?
Yeah.
Okay, so concentration camp, 20 people, and after Wannsee that Ian was talking about earlier, and the decision to go forward with the final solution, Operation Reinhardt, the solution to cleanse, not only relocate, but cleanse Europe of the Jews of Europe, and preferably whatever possible other Jews as well. They start building these three camps, Treblinka being one of them. Here in Treblinka specifically, what do they start doing? They take Jewish prisoners from those 20,000 people and they send them to go do things that aren't very different from the gravel pits that they would have been working in over there. They send them to come build this camp. Why Jewish prisoners? What's that?
They already had the labor.
Okay, they already had the labor, but why not send Polish or Gypsy prisoners or any other prisoners that they have? They wanted to send people that they knew would not leave any mark here, that they knew that they could get rid of. As you can tell, there's not much left here today. All in all, we're talking about a camp that was in operation for under a year and a half. Okay? You heard the numbers that are suggested that Ian talked about earlier. As far as the Jewish population here alone, we're talking probably about somewhere close to 800,000 Jews exterminated in this place. The size of this place, and I'm going to sort of give a little apology / warning, I'm confused by imperialists and the non-metric system. So if you can't understand what a meter is, just think of it as a yard, and that should roughly convert for the idea of understanding this. 400 by 800 meters is the size of all of Treblinka 2. Okay? It's pretty small, right?
Yeah, it's tiny.
Pretty small. But it's not so simple. What happens here? First of all, the train comes through. The train tracks have also been dismantled. Normally, there's a monument running around along the right-hand side. I'm not sure if we'll be able to see it.
You'll see the bumps every so often.
Yeah, I think that's about all that we'll see. Showing a reconstruction of where the train tracks once went. Jews were brought in as far as they could possibly be taken into here. Were brought in all the way on the train. When they unloaded from the train, this is all about propaganda, all about what's happening in the head. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you do? If somebody's being sent to his death, do you let them know that they're going to their death?
No.
You tell them they're being resettled, right? How far do you go to uphold this charade of being resettled?
You tell them to pack their bags.
Okay, you tell them to pack the bags. What else do you do?
Tell them to take a shower.
Take a shower? Before the shower, what else?
You have people there welcoming them.
You have people that are welcoming them. What if you wanted things that they could be able, a little slat in a cattle car, but somebody's going to be looking out that slat, somebody's going to see something, right? What things do you want them to see? You want them to see that people are actually working, right? If you come to an empty place with smoke coming out of a chimney, that doesn't look very hopeful. Rumors have been going around already at this point of the war. People say, here Treblinka already say, oh my God, that's a bad thing, we shouldn't be going there. From the exhaust of the engine, the Soviet tank goes into the shower stall that is actually a gas chamber. They fire up the Soviet tank, and within 10 to 15 minutes, everybody is killed of carbon monoxide poisoning. Those of you who've heard of Cyclone B, they didn't use it here. They had a different idea of using fuel and burning off a diesel engine. Like I said earlier, this is not a concentration camp. Why else send the women later? While the men are going in, the men aren't so important. Why aren't the men so important? Well, nobody's going to reproduce anymore, but what can you still get from the women that you can't get from the men?
Sex slaves.
And what about that nice hair? So while the men are in the shower, the tank is making a lot of noise, probably not enough in order to mask the screams, and Jewish prisoners. And wait, you're going to say, wait, but there were no prisoners. Yes, there were prisoners. This is the Sonderkommando, the special task force, the very quote-unquote lucky people who were selected to be part of this task force, strong people who were to do all of the dirty work for the Nazis inside the camp so that the SS officers wouldn't need to get their hands dirty, or the Ukrainian guards either. The women go in as well, and within 2 to 3 hours, they manage to get rid of a train full of people. What's left after a train full of people has disappeared?
Valuables.
Hair, valuables. What kind of valuables?
Jewelry.
Jewelry, candlesticks, clothing. Everything is a valuable. Everything. Everything you can use is valuable. 14th century, and originally the Jews weren't even allowed to live in Warsaw. So this is the new Jewish cemetery, right? This isn't the old Jewish cemetery. Most of the Jews were originally buried where the Jews lived. Jews lived across the river because that's where they were allowed to live. In the 19th century, beginning of the 19th century, they started moving into the city, and in 1806 they started burying here in this place. It's a pretty big cemetery, right? Look pretty full from the little bit we've seen. It's been full for a really long time. 5 years or so after they started burying here, they filled the entire cemetery. Now, today, I doubt any of the cemeteries, how many of you have been to a cemetery, been to the funeral of a loved one, visited someone's grave? Most people here? Today, it would probably be unheard of in most cemeteries, but here they were very limited on the space they had available. So what they did was they just started burying in layers. And this was something that was very common. We'll see it in Krakow as well. By the beginning of the war in 1939, it's believed that there were at least 130,000 Jewish graves here in this cemetery. Okay? We're not 100% sure on numbers because we really can't know exactly. It's hard to tell, but that is the guesstimate that is often used as a figure. Deportations came in. They told him that he needed to decide and pick groups of 6,000. And he managed to delay this for close to a year, which is truly impressive. He often spent time in Nazi jails here. He was detained. He was pleading, going from Nazi office to Nazi office to try and make things happen. He was truly doing everything he possibly could. When they eventually got him to decide, and they threatened him. They said, if you don't, we are going to kill your wife. And he decided that he realizes that if he doesn't hand over the names, they're just going to take these people. Questions? they're just going to take these people, whoever they want, anyways. So he hands over the names, and after the 6,000 leave, he drinks. He realizes what he's done, and he poisons himself and kills himself. He commits suicide. So I told you we're going to talk about the story, but I did feel like this was something so important to talk about right now that I decided to go into this whole suicide thing. Why? Very, very good. People who commit suicide are not allowed to be buried inside the Jewish cemetery. So why is he buried here? How is he buried here?
Because it was admirable.
He did everything he could, and it was decided that he did not commit suicide, but he was rather pushed to a place of such despair that there was nothing else that he could do, and that it was not his fault. So we are at what is probably one of the most significant spots in the cemetery for Holocaust history. During the Holocaust, you know that a lot of people were sent to camps, but a lot of people also died in ghettos. We'll talk about the ghettos, and we'll talk about the Warsaw Ghetto, where people were given a mere 300 calories a day, and it was up to them to make do with that. People died of starvation, of typhus. They were beat, shot, you name it. What happened with all those people?
They were burned.
They were no longer people of means, because everything they had was taken from them. When they died, they were taken from the ghetto. If you think about any movies that you've seen that have scenes in the ghettos, then you can think of the carts of people being carried out, of bodies being carried out in the ghettos, right?
Yeah.
That happened here too. These markers right here mark what we call in Hebrew Kiver Achim, the grave of brothers and sisters. Throughout history, in times when we have not had the ability to give proper individual burial to everyone, but we wanted to give burial nonetheless, we've used this method of putting lots of people in one space and burying them. It is believed that there are somewhere in the vicinity of 100,000 people buried in this grave and another group grave that we do not know where it is, somewhere in the cemetery here. What I'd like to do now is, I believe we're just enough people that if we, you see there's sort of a wake in the middle there?
Yeah.
That's a pathway that was built over the group grave. I believe that if we stretch out, we can make a circle around via that pathway and back to here in order to say Kaddish.